All right, Jim Ruppert, Dave Kane talking small school football. Who do we have? What's it look like? We got 1, 2, and 3A mostly. Rochester, now out of your area, now a Central State 8 school.
Yeah.
They're in 4A. So Triopia is number 7 in 1A, Auburn number 8 in 3A. Are those the two best around, you think?
Yeah. Ironically, both nicknamed Trojans, but totally nothing, total coincidence. Yeah, I would say at least at the start. Yeah, they're probably the best in their respective classes. You know, in our area. You know, with Auburn,
a lot of this is based on tradition.
It is especially in what they did the previous year. Auburn is number 8 in 3A, and last year Dave Bates, the coach, wasn't sure if they would be 2A or 3A. They were right on the bubble for the playoffs. They ended up 3A, and they're going to be on the bubble again. So we're going to see them probably maybe ranked in 3A most of the year, and then come playoff time, it's hard to say. Auburn, you know, Michael Bates, the coach's son, is back for his senior year finally.
Is that all?
Yeah, and he has all 5 of his top receivers back from last year. They did lose a few linemen. They're probably, I would say, at least a slight favorite in the Sangamo going in, the Sangamo Conference. It'll probably be between them and Williamsville and Petersburg Porta, probably the kind of the big 3 of the Sangamo there. Concord Triopia, of course, over in the WIVC North Division. Of course, you know, they've been solid for a number of years, a state championship 2 years ago. They lost a little bit of their size compared to the last couple of years, but Rich Thompson, their head coach, thinks that they're going to be, by Triopia standards, maybe a little quicker, a little faster than they have been. So that'll maybe give them a slight edge over like Jacksonville Route and, you know, Brown County in that Northern Division.
You touched on Auburn being a member of the Sangamo Conference. Second year of the Sangamo. We've seen the Sangamo Prairie State split. The Prairie State is going to go bye-bye after this year anyway, but talk about a little bit about the Sangamo. You said Auburn the favorite, Williamsville is in the mix. Porta.
Yeah, I would say, you know, in talking to coaches and when we did our preseason poll, it was a pretty clear-cut. Those 3 teams, you know, came up usually in the top 3.
What's Williamsville got to offer?
Williamsville has Josh Gentile to start with. You know, in that conference, you have 2, probably the area's top small school quarterbacks, Michael Bates at Auburn and Josh Gentile at Williamsville. A wonderful athlete, very quick, very elusive. The Bullets did lose some of their skill people, so they do have
every year they lose skilled people. Every year they bounce back.
Well,
there's always somebody waiting in the wings. Rossetti now is a junior waiting to be Gentile next year.
Right, and I think Aaron Coons has already talked about maybe working Rossetti into some offensive sets just to kind of ease him in where they could. I don't know if it'll get to the point where they have a 2 quarterback system, but Nick Rossetti is a very good athlete, but also a very good receiver. So, and Porta in the Sangamo, Porta is kind of the opposite of the other 2. They lost their starting quarterback, lost their top running back, but they have most of their line back. So I think it's just a question of how quickly the new quarterback and skill people, you know, get into the system.
And Rich McMahon's a great coach. I think most of those schools, they have second stringers that are just waiting. They're pretty close to being first stringers most of the time.
Yeah,
they'll fill in.
Right.
Prairie State Conference.
Yeah.
Smaller schools.
Well, yeah, in a way, smaller schools, but it's kind of a mix. Last year you had Staunton and Gillespie coming in to the Prairie State from the South Central, which is generally a 2A, 3A conference. Mm-hmm. And now you have Staunton and Gillespie in, I guess it's a 1A, 2A conference. Staunton looks to be the favorite. They won the conference last year. They lost their top running back, but they have a couple of, their quarterback is back and a couple of their top running backs. Staunton will be there. Gillespie, just because of numbers, they'll be there. Of course, you got Don DeBrino helping Don Borgini this year, so
they've been together before.
Yeah, and Pawnee, at least in the Prairie State, will probably be the 1A standard bearer. You know, as far as the top 1A team in the Prairie State, Kit Thine's done a great job down there. They do have some returnees from last year, so Staunton does probably gets the nod. So,
one more thing to talk about, and that is. You did a story on Pittsfield.
Mm-hmm.
40-year anniversary of Pittsfield. Undefeated football team.
They didn't allow a point in 1970. That was part of that very long winning streak. But that year in particular, yeah, they didn't allow a single point. It was a fun story to do. It was a fun story to do. I mean, again, you know, you're talking, my gosh, 40 years ago now, and I mean, I was grade school age, but I remember reading about the Pittsfield Saukeys, and of course they had a lot of Deke Pollard stories to tell. Their coach, Lombardi type stories, but just and they obviously that was before the playoffs. They wish they could have been in the playoffs, even though they said maybe our winning streak wouldn't have gone as long, but we would have liked to find out how we would have stacked up against everybody in the state. So, but it was a neat story to do. A lot of fun.
This is the preseason. Next week we'll talk about how the first week of games went. So catch us next Friday on the State Journal Register, www.sjr.com, Football Review.